Frank Klose does a great job covering the Phils. Sports Talk Philly, as well as our 97.3 ESPN FM Phillies Insider. Frank, how you doing, pal?
About yourself?
I'm doing well. I guess maybe Tommy Joseph listening. I don't know. He's starting to come around a little bit. 5 of 15, right? Batting average is rising. He's seeing pitchers better. He's not going to be in the starting lineup today. Saunders will bat 5th in place of Joseph. Stassi will get to start at first base. But how about the turnaround with Tommy Joseph over the last week or so?
I think it's why they call it a batting average, right? You have your ups, you have your downs. It's not sustainable that Aaron Altherr is going to hit 380, and I'm sure at the same time Tommy Joseph isn't going to hit 180. So often if you hang in there, you can kind of work your way through things. And let's face it, as we've said, he's finally making some adjustments back. So all the pitchers got to see video on him, and then now they can take a look at some of the pitchers. So it's really good to see that he's kind of coming around and making those adjustments.
What I like last night is when you watch the one at bat with Miguel Franco. You talk about Franco and seeing pitches and not swinging all over the place. What happens last night, right? He had that wild Reggie Jackson-like swing where he torts his body all over the place. Then he gathers himself. He drills the next pitch over the wall with the grand slam, 3 hits on the night. But again, it seems as though, Franco's going to be Franco, right? There's going to be days where he's going to see pitches well, he'll make adjustments, or if he sees a pitch that he likes and he gets the green light, he's swinging for the fences.
Yeah, and I think, too, we don't want to put too high an expectation on what Maikel Franco is. I think we've said before, he's got some nice power, some nice defense, but we don't want to perhaps make him a superstar that he might not be. But I think he's going to do a lot of great things for the Phillies. I think his power is going to connect, and he'll have those wild swings at times. I think that's just who he is. But as you'll see, he will hit the grand slam that, puts 4 on the board and really gets the Phillies going.
And you also, listen, last night, the offense, look, you can talk about whether it's the opposing pitching, the ballpark, it doesn't matter. Galvis gets the solo shot. Saunders adds a 2-run homer in the 8th last night. We'll get to Velasquez, and he settled down. We'll get to him in a moment. But, again, once in a while, it's good to have nights like that because I think it instills a little more confidence in your lineup. And then, honestly, going forward, starting rotation, starting pitchers, the rest of these guys in the NL, the NL East, whoever they're playing, they'll start to actually respect this lineup a little more. And I think what you'll also see is guys will be able to see some more pitches.
Yeah, and you knew Maikel Saunders would eventually hit a home run. I mean, last year was kind of his biggest power year, but when he's hitting home runs and providing some power, it's going to provide some lineup protection. I know if you noticed, the Phillies flipped Joseph and Saunders last night. That was something new. So who knows? Maybe it took a little pressure off, but maybe it helped Tommy Joseph see a little bit more. So I don't think anybody's necessarily scared of Saunders, but I think with all the parts together as a whole, it can be pretty good. I mean, just think about last year when they had lineups where the pitchers batting 8th, and then before and after them you had the likes of David Lowe, Manny Burris, and Peter Borjos. So this is definitely an improvement. Whenever you can put Galvis 8th, you're going to get a little something out of Galvis. Galvis isn't a high average guy like he wasn't last year, not a high on base guy, but he comes up with a big hit here and there, and the fact that he's a switch hitter is very helpful. So it's definitely a lineup that I think people are going to start to take a look at it with a little bit more respect, and it's only going to get better because Jorge Alfaro is just tearing the cover off the ball at AAA, and I got to wonder if he's going to make the Phillies make a decision by June 1st if he keeps playing like this.
It's funny. I actually had that in my notes, and that's exactly where I wanted to go. We talked a little bit about this, right? Sometimes sometimes the player can force your hand a little more, right? Because now I'm hearing they're not going to rush him, but I'm telling you, this he's doing enough where their eyes aren't really opening up. They are wide-eyed right now. I mean, it's just, you look at the stat line, he's crushing the ball. He's absolutely crushing the ball.
Yeah, and if you think about what happened last year with Tommy Joseph, I mean, you get to a point where if the guy that's up there in that role, which was Darren Ruff, wasn't producing, and Tommy Joseph is just, he was just basically tearing the door down saying, let me in, the Phillies have to respect that, and they have to make a decision. So Cameron Rupp hitting 170 after yesterday. I mean, I don't think anybody ever projected Cameron Rupp to be a big hitter, in terms of average. But yeah, if you have your starting catcher hitting 170 and you have Jorge Alfaro in the minors with showing power and average and playing a decent defense, then how can you not bring him up? So I think when you talk about not rushing him, I think once you get past the point where now remember, Alfaro was up for a little while last year, but I think they are still going to be conscious of the contractual nature of having a player up and counting towards his pre-arbitration year.
Yeah, final option year. So beginning next year, the Phillies, you can't send him down back to the minors because then you risk losing him.
Well, Alfaro still got 2 more options. So, but I think in terms of if he's I think it's 45 days service time. Basically, they get another year. So if he was already up for a month, they have to basically add the time up last year to that 45 days. And once that time is passed, they could bring him up and essentially hold on to him for an entire other year. So I think they might want to do that. Now they actually technically had to option Alfaro this year because he was on the 40-man roster, so he can come up and down and it doesn't count towards any more options. But I think they would love to have him that extra year at the end. So I think it's probably at some point around June or so, or even at the end of May. If you think back a couple of years what the Phillies did with Maikel Franco, it was so clear he was ready to come up. But they just waited just a couple more days to do so that they could have that extra year of control. And I would not be shocked if they do that with Alfaro.
2 more for you. And again, Frank Klose, kind enough to join us on a Thursday. We'll take you up to 2 o'clock. Does a great job as our Phillies insider for 97.3 ESPN FM, as well as Sports Talk Philly. Phil's in action. First pitch 105. You've got Velasquez and Hellickson. We'll get to Hellickson in a moment. But how about Velasquez? Listen, 6 1/3, longest outing of the season. Struck out a couple, lowered the ERA, settled down after giving up that early lead. That's kind of the start that he needed.
Yeah, you really need him to go deep in games if he's going to make it. It's kind of funny. His strikeouts were way down compared to other games. But with 3 strikeouts, 2 walks, those were the types of things that used to really increase his pitch count. You say, well, he struck out 10. Well, that's great, but he also only went 4 innings. Looking back a couple starts ago. So the fact that he can get some outs without having to throw so many pitches, and you know what, he might have given up a couple runs early because he's pitching to contact a little more, but that's okay. I mean, you expect your starting pitcher not to throw a shutout every single time, so it's okay if he gives up a couple runs, and technically that was considered a quality start last night, but I think the best part of it was that he lasted into the 7th inning, and I think we're. And unfortunately, one of those 3 runs scored after he left the game. Joely Rodriguez let one of his runners score. But I think a very positive step going forward, and hopefully he's not as afraid to pitch to contact in the future.
Last one for you. Speaking of the starting, and by the way, not everyone can be Koufax. But looking at the starting rotation, how about Hellickson? He's pitched really well in his last 2 starts. Quality starts, going 7 strong against Atlanta and Washington. He might give up a homer from time to time, but it's not going to kill you. Mostly solo shots. But again, he's been pitching well, and you kind of look for him to ride that momentum in today's contest. But if they can start to get 2 or 3 of these guys, giving them some quality starts and keeping them in games, the offense does the rest. Then they're going to continue to win a couple ball games here and there, especially early on in the season.
Yeah, I think this club is a quintessential 500 club in a lot of ways, because I think they're going to put together some win streaks like this one, and they're going to put together some losing streaks like they had a couple weeks ago. But whenever you have somebody like a Hellickson giving you 6-7 innings every time out and being very efficient with his pitches, and when you have guys behind him, the likes of Jared Eichhoff, who always seems to give you a good outing, and you get more from the likes of, and hopefully Nola's not out that long, but they seem to have enough stability at this point that you're not going to find a lot of losing streaks. They're going to have some, and they're going to take their lumps in the bullpen at times, I'm sure, but this team has a certain stability to it, and I think Hellickson is a real part of that, and I think that's why they don't mind paying him $17.2 million, even though everybody says, oh, yeah, well, that's a lot. Well, you know what? Who else are you going to get on a one-year deal, even if you pay them $4 million less? So really, this was a very wise investment in Hellickson, in my opinion.
All right, Phil's look to make it 6 in a row in about 20-something odd minutes. First pitch, 105. Volquez against Hellickson. Frank Klose always does a great job on 97.3 ESPN FM as well as Sports Talk Philly. Enjoy your Thursday, pal. Enjoy the game. We'll talk next week. Appreciate a couple moments.
Thank you. Have a good one.
All right, you got it. Frank Klose, join us for a couple